Welcome to the Awareness Space podcast, a place where we explore what it means to live with a neurodivergent brain. I was diagnosed at 41 with ADHD. After 20 years of struggling with anxiety, depression, impulsivity, and a life-hindering, overactive mind, I found the answer. This podcast has a mission to interview as many people with a neurodivergent brain as we can in hope to raise awareness. Awareness that it's never too late to discover your truth. Join us every week as we talk with therapists, coaches, and people who can share their story. Getting the diagnosis is just the beginning. May we all thrive in our own way of life. Now let's dive in. Welcome back, everybody, to the Awareness Space podcast, a place where we honor and raise a divergent life. We are here for those who don't yet know that they have ADHD and those trying to make sense of it all post-diagnosis. This is episode 2 of our series of Me, Myself, and ADHD. I will dive into conversations with a guest on all things ADHD and other neurodivergent brain presentations, should they be part of their experience. We will cover the run-up to diagnosis, the diagnosis experience itself, and how life is unfolded thereafter, including looking at the guest passion and how they thrive. So here we are. On today's episode, I welcome Eli Trier. Welcome, Eli, to the podcast. I'm not going to do a big intro for you because I don't want to mess it up, so I'm going to let you do that. But thank you for being here. I'm really looking forward to learning more about neurodivergent life for me through your wisdom. That's kind of the general idea. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. I was just so pleased. I put an announcement out, hey, I'm looking for a guest. And then you reached out, and that's really exciting because people often do that. They don't want to risk it. And I really appreciate you, just being so keen. And I was a bit nervous relaunching the podcast, but you made me feel really safe and comfortable because you were so keen. So thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
That's all good. So I'm really excited today because half the show will be looking at your story, and the other half will be looking at the work that you're doing, and it's all within the creative art space. And I'm really passionate about that. It's been a big part of my life. I'm doing a graphic design degree, so we're going to have a lot of fun. But before we do that, touching on that, let's know a little bit more about you as of today. What does life look like for you? What are you doing out there in the world?
Such a good question. Ultimately, I'm a visual artist. And I make work that is all about my experience as a autistic person with ADHD, a neuroqueer person, a person who exists and has existed my whole life very much on the fringes of the norm. And my work is all about reaching out to people in a visual medium and helping people like us feel seen, feel connected, feel celebrated, and also help with things like bravery, identity affirmation, emotional regulation, all sorts of stuff that art has the power to do. I really want to unlock that for people. So I've been an artist most of my life. I was a commercial artist for a while, moved into sort of community building, and then came back to creating art kind of on my own terms. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate, like being a commercial artist and having to be creative to other people's specifications and meeting briefs and hitting deadlines and stuff. I found it incredibly stressful and overwhelming. And I'm much, much happier in this space where I can just make the art that wants to come out of me and then use it as a tool for connecting with other people who have similar experiences.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much. And it's something you touched on there, which I really like, is, when I'm doing the graphic design degree, it's you get in the brief and you have to do it in a very specific way. And also then you're marked on how you got there, your approach, what they sort of critiquing you have to learn all that, critiquing your approach. But I always make sure that I do my own stuff on the side, stuff where I can really express myself with no restrictions.
Yes.
It's such a powerful point because creative people, especially ADHD, creative, autistic, creative, I'm sure there needs to be that ability to we can finally express ourselves in a medium that doesn't even involve other people, I think that's really, really powerful. But I don't want to get too carried away because I could talk to you all day about that. So we're going to do the first half of the show as we always do. So rather than going right back, because what's interesting about yours is because you've got the AuDHD, so we've got the autism and the ADHD. That's going to be really interesting. Episode 2, straight away kicking off with AuDHD, which is great. But rather than going right back to the beginning, I want to know, because this is so fresh in my mind, what was happening for you in your life? So looking at age ranges as well, when you thought, hang on a sec, is this? And then you start looking into it. So I want to know what was happening into the build-up of going in for a diagnosis. What did that look like? And what was happening that made you think, this is serious, I need to look into this?
I mean, I've struggled with various things my whole life, and one of the thing that has been most prevalent for me is sensory issues. So I have a really hard time with sensory processing, and it was a period of my life that was quite stressful. I was running my own business, just kind of finding my feet, getting myself established, and my sensory issues were really playing up. And I remember I went for a walk with my husband in the botanical gardens, and it was a beautiful sunny day. And it should have been a really kind of lovely, stress-free, calming experience. But it was very busy. There were a lot of people around. It was a bit too bright. The sun was in the wrong place in the sky. It was quite windy. So, there was a lot of, my hair flying everywhere. There was a lot of sensory information coming from that. And I just had what I now know to be a meltdown. And my wonderful husband sort of steered me into a quiet corner and gave me his hoodie. And as soon as I put the hood up on his hoodie, it felt like everything just went completely calm again. I was like, okay, I can deal with this. I can breathe. I can focus again. And I was telling this experience to a friend of mine afterwards. And I was joking, and I said, oh my God, it's like I'm autistic or something. And she said, you could be, right? And I was like, oh. And up to that point, I had my only experience of kind of autism was the very sort of stereotypical media representation that we see. It's only boys and men. You've got the kind of the Rain Man thing, the savantism thing, the nonverbal, all of those kind of really classic stereotypes that we see. And so it had never even occurred to me, despite the fact that I'd had all this stuff. I'd put other labels on myself. I'd found The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron, I think, and claimed that's like, yes, of course, this makes a lot of sense. The introvert label, like all of these kind of things that sort of made sense, but didn't really describe my whole experience. And I started looking into the way that autism presents in women and girls. And I found a list of diagnostic criteria on the internet from a psychologist. And as I was going through the list, I was like, yes, 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 yes. Like every single thing was like, oh my God. And I did, as we do, I did a full-on hyper focus. I went deep in. I did so much research. I talked to some friends about it. And then I went to see my stepmother, who has an autistic daughter who is much more, has higher support needs. And I went to her and I said, like, I've been reading all this stuff and I think I might be on the spectrum. And she was like, I've been waiting for you to come to me with this for 20 years. I was like, oh, okay. Like, you could have said something earlier. She's like, oh, I didn't want to interfere. Like, you spoke to your dad about it. And I thought, you'd come around to it when you were ready. I didn't want to like impose, which is fair enough. But she very kindly then agreed to see me through the diagnostic process in Denmark, because I was born and grew up in England, and I moved to Denmark about 10 years ago. My family is Danish. So going through the diagnostic process in a foreign language was very kind of overwhelming and confusing, and I'm so grateful that I had her there. And in Denmark, this system, I know in the UK, it's horrendous, and there's waiting lists that are years long, and it's a really kind of awful and can be very dehumanizing experience unless you kind of go private. And Yeah. But in Denmark, we're very lucky. It was a very quick and easy thing. I went to see my GP. Went to see a psychiatrist from there, and I was diagnosed within about 3 months, I think. And when I went to see the psychiatrist, he was like, well, yes, absolutely, definitely autism, and probably also ADHD as well. And I was like, oh, I hadn't even considered that. Like, that was a whole extra thing. So yeah, that was the kind of the process that led up to me adopting this whole new kind of version of myself.
Thank you so much. I was nodding away, wasn't I? Just because all the classic moments, like, yeah, obviously you've got it.
uh,
It's like all these people, yeah, of course. I mean, for God's sake, you could have, why did you wait 10 years? And it's,
Why didn't you say
yeah,
something?
it's crazy. It's crazy. But I get that people, especially in Britain, they want to, better not say anything.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting. I didn't know until my partner got diagnosed last year, and I was the informant on the forms. I was like, hang on a second. So it's true is that I think it's a combination of that moment, like you said, being in such a highly sensory environment. And who
Mm.
knows where you'd be if you didn't have the meltdown? It's an interesting one, isn't it? If you
Mm.
didn't have that, how would you have got here? So it's really interesting. But I'm guessing, normally it's ADHD first, so people sort of start to see those
Mm.
traits and they look at that, and then they might go for an autistic diagnosis a bit later on. So it's very interesting that that came up first, I guess, because of the sensory. So what sort of age were you at that time, and what was the gap between? Did you do autistic and ADHD diagnosis? Was it all together, or was there a gap? How did that unfold?
It all happened simultaneously. And I think, I mean, I was, what was I, 36? So it's quite some time ago. It's been almost a decade now, which is horrifying to think about because it seems like it was 5 minutes ago.
Mm.
But I don't think there was so much like the neurodivergence on social media. Like there's so many more memes and information and people talking about their experience. And that wasn't really a thing back then. So I can see very clearly how people come to autism through ADHD these days. Um, but yeah, back when I got diagnosed, it was all the same thing. Like girls can't get ADHD, girls can't have autism. Like it was weird. Um, and now it's much more sort of, I think that points of entry are much more varied and much more accessible, so people can see that. And I've forgotten the other part of your question.
No, that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. It was the gap between, let's say, it was simultaneous
Yeah.
and later life. That was this whole show is about later life mostly.
Yeah,
So I was
absolutely.
41 and mine was 4 weeks ago. So you're a decade, I'm 4 weeks in. So no wonder I'm sat here listening to you because it's going to be really useful. But how did you feel going into the assessment? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Were you wanting the diagnosis? Were you like, oh my God, what if I don't? If you can remember, I would love to know because I had all kinds of issues with running into it. I was all over the place. What were your emotions around that?
I think it made so much sense to me, everything that I had read and researched. Like it just didn't make any sense that that this wasn't the case. Um, and I definitely wanted the diagnosis because I have struggled my entire life. And to have this official thing meant that it wasn't my fault. So I was really, yeah, it really mattered to me to have the diagnosis. I mean, I think self-diagnosis is absolutely valid, but for me personally, I wanted like absolution in a way. I wanted like somebody to tell me that everything that had gone wrong in my life, um, and all the ways that I had felt other and alien, and all the ways that people had responded to me in a way that I didn't understand, or things had happened that I didn't understand. I wanted to have a reason for that. Um, so it was really, yeah, I mean, it's always nerve-wracking to have kind of anything like to go into anything like that, to be assessed in any way, you know. But my biggest fear was not that he would say, yes, you're autistic, but that he would say no. And then I'd have to figure out, like, okay, I'm just a mess of a person. Like, it was so validating for me to get that diagnosis and realize, like, okay, I'm not a failed normal person. I'm actually an exceptional person with a huge limitation, like an actual disability. And that changed my sort of self-perception, not instantly, but certainly over the next kind of 6 months to a year.
Yeah, it's kind of like, look at what I've managed to do in spite of. It's a
Yeah,
much more powerful story. And that I'm still
exactly.
going through the grieving process of what has been.
Mm.
I've got a long way to go in that sense. And it's like, whoa, okay, so I did all that. That's pretty cool. But I'm feeling like it's worse since I found out I've got it. I feel like my presentations are worse, and that's probably just
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a thing that really happens.
could you see it, I guess? I'm like, can my mind just shut up for 5 seconds, please? And I thought I had anxiety. I've had anxiety my whole life. And I was like, I just don't get it because I can have no anxiety for a while and then it's really bad. And it's only now that, like, if I study for more than 25 minutes, so I'm on my computer doing my degree, I start getting anxious. I'm like, oh, it's overstimulation. That makes way more sense. So it's not anxiety, it's
Yes.
sympathetic charge. So I can change the words because anxiety is a loaded word.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I was similar to you. I was like, oh, what if I don't get it? I completely hear you there. Because I was like,
Mm.
if it wasn't that, then
Then what's wrong with me?
yeah,
Like, oh my God.
I can't control my emotions and I feel like a bad person. Because I'm a good person, but I can get angry very fast. So I might drop like a knife on the floor in the kitchen and just like lose it. Like, fuck you, knife. And it's like, what? So now I know I'm not just an angry, horrible person. No one should go near me. It's like, oh no, I see it now. Now I can hold myself when it happens. I wouldn't be able to do
Hmm.
that before. I would have thought that I'm default in some way. So I totally
Yeah.
hear you there. It's a huge one, especially emotional regulation. I mean, so much of what I've learned so far is sort of the cognitive regulation, emotional regulation, energy regulation. People forget this. It massively impacts your energy systems. It can lead to
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
chronic burnout and fatigue. So much for people to learn about. So yeah, wary that I'm so excited to talk about the art stuff, but we need to just make sure we've covered all our bases. So you went into diagnosis, and you were wanting that diagnosis. So you were saying, so 6 months to a year where you were adjusting. How Yeah, you can see where I am at right now, 4 weeks in. So in
Hmm.
that year, how did it, if you can remember, how did it sort of all transition? When was your hurrah? Right, I'm owning this. I'm going to go out into the world and just be my amazing ND self. How did what happened? I need to know.
It was a roller coaster. It was a roller coaster. Like, one minute I'd be like, yeah, I'm like a certified weirdo, and I'm gonna do this. I can just be the meest me I've ever been, and I have this like hook to hang it on so people don't misunderstand me. Um, and then I spent a long time trying to figure out, okay, what's me, what's my personality, and what's the diagnosis, what's the autism, what's the ADHD. Um, and that is a road that's not even worth going down, because it's all you know, it's this mesh of, you are your personality, you are the way that your brain is, you know, it's all tied together, and you can't pass it out, you can't separate it. But that was a really big thing for me. I was like, well, who am I? And it felt like this was me, and then I had this diagnosis that's kind of plopped on top, whereas actually it's like it's the very fabric of who I am. Like, everything that I do, everything that I experience, everything that I think, every aspect of my personality is comes through this lens of my neurodivergence. And I think that took a long, long time to sort of assimilate. I think, yeah, it was like, you know, when you get a, I don't know, this is going back a few years. If you get a goldfish from the fair and you put it straight into a new water tank, it'll die instantly. But if you keep it in its bag and you kind of plop the bag in the water, then it has time to sort of assimilate and get into its environment. And it was a bit like that, you know, in a weird kind of way. I spent a lot of time being very, very angry at at my parents, like, why did they not pick this up sooner? Why did nobody notice? Why didn't anybody say anything? Why didn't anybody help me? Why wasn't anybody looking out for me? Like all of that kind of stuff. If I'd known sooner, my life could have been completely different. Like it's all, I mean, it's all valid stuff. It's all like valid emotional reactions to this. But ultimately, I think as you kind of go through that grieving process, because it is a grieving process, you know, it is it's something that you have to move through. You're mourning the loss of who you thought you are. You're mourning the loss of the hope of ever being quote unquote normal, you know? Because I think for a lot of us, there's this, oh, if I just got my shit together, if I just sorted my life out, if I just, you know, started this new exercise routine or had a new planner or had a new way of doing things or had a new morning routine, then I could fix myself and I would be fine. And realizing that there's stuff that you can do to mitigate how you're feeling and how you're behaving and how, you know, what your regulation is like. But you're never going to be normal. You're never going to be normal. It's just, this is your new reality. And that is something to rail against, but after a while, and yeah, like I said, it took me about a year, you get to this place of acceptance where you just let go. You just let go of all of it and you realize like, okay, the biggest thing that I can do is be compassionate towards myself. And even though I still feel like exactly the same person, I now have this information about myself, which means that I can be compassionate towards myself. I can stop before I completely burn out. I can stop when I'm getting overstimulated. I can give myself grace when I fly off the handle or when I have a meltdown or when somebody says something perfectly innocuous to me and I just burst into tears for 3 days. Like, it's fine. It's fine. And yeah, if you stop beating yourself up about that, that's what the diagnosis really gave to me. It made me kinder to myself.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning compassion. It's such a huge part of it. I'm listening to endless podcasts, loads of different ADHD podcasts, and that is time and time again. You know, it's all the classic things they say, like anything, you know, take care of your mind, good sleep, good diet, keep moving, get into nature, experience awe and the beauty of the mystery of this world. So it's kind of all of that. But another part of what you said, which I really liked, was all about identity. So, I mean, we all form identities that we think make us who we are, regardless of neurodiversity or neurodivergent ways. So it's really trying to honor your truth, but without identifying to the point, this is, I am an ADHD person and that's all I am. It's part of your life experience and it's a huge part and it can be quite debilitating, but it's not who you are. Really, if you step back and witness yourself, as we used to talk about in the awareness space prior to this iteration, the skill is in being able to witness your experience of life, witness your emotions, witnessing your thoughts. You harness that power, then life becomes a lot easier to navigate. So it's trying to witness yourself with ADHD is probably even more important because you say, oh, whoa, hang on a second. I'm not an anxious person, but sympathetic charge comes up for me when I overdo it with focusing. Cool. All right. I don't need to identify with any of that. That's just a process that I can work with. So anyone listening who is concerned about going in for diagnosis and like, what will it mean? Who are they after that? What is their identity after that? Oh God, everyone's going to just think I'm an ADHD person, and half the people go, "You don't have that. We're all a bit ADHD."
Yep,
Especially for
sure.
women. So that's unfortunately going to be part of the process. That people will respond that way. And like I said in my video on Instagram yesterday, you know, you just surround yourself with just a few people at least that get it, and that's kind of the community that we're all trying to build here. And being with you here today, I feel connected to you because we're on a similar path. So it's important
Yeah,
that we do
exactly.
that. But identity, guys, just always remember that. Don't over-identify. The diagnosis is great. The label is really useful. Just don't make it 100% of your being, because you're so much more than anything you do. Just you being in existence is enough. Oh, this is getting very cheesy, Owen. What's
Exactly.
happened to me? That's great.
It's so true. You are who you are. Like you are who you've always been. you just maybe can be nicer to yourself and maybe design your life in a way that so it doesn't overstimulate you so much, or it doesn't, cause you to have meltdowns every week, or, it gives you data. And data is so important for keeping yourself happy. Like if you know what your triggers are, if you know what calms you, all of this stuff means that you can have a happier, healthier life, which is free from all of this self-recrimination.
Yeah, certainly. There's certain things, like all of us have to make lifestyle changes, and it can be very difficult for ADHDers especially to stick to things like that. But I'm 4 weeks in, I'm doing that. I'm addressing my diet, and it's been a game changer, but it's also affected my dopamine. So I'm not eating the processed food and the chocolate for about 4 days, and I've been eating really, really well, and I feel amazing inside, and my gut feels great. But I notice my mood is completely dipped. Like, 'cause I'm not getting the dopamine from having some ice cream or doing this or having the chocolate bar. That's the
Yeah.
deal I'm gonna have to make with the devil right now. It's like my brain will function better on a better diet, or sorry, better eating regime. It will function better, which means I can study more, I can do more podcasts, which all provide dopamine. It just means I ain't gonna get no short-term cookie dough dopamine.
Oh, good luck. Good luck.
Right.
That's you're doing a brave thing.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have gone so hardcore to begin with, but that's another part of my brain. It's like, no, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it properly.
All
But
in.
that I will leave that for another podcast episode when I'm by myself talking about my struggles with eating. But that's fine. So before we move on to kind of the amazing work that you're doing right now, what was your what's your been your approach medication? Have you taken it, not taken it? What are your thoughts? It's really important that we always cover that.
Yeah, no, I'm unmedicated. I have tried some medication. The first time I tried it, I slept for 3 hours.
Mm.
Um, and I tried it once or twice and it just didn't really do the thing. But I am incredibly fortunate in that, as well as ADHD, I also have autism, which means that I have an elaborate scaffolding of routines and structure and all sorts of stuff that sort of helps to mitigate the ADHD. Um, it's quite funny. My husband and I moved in together last year. We've been together for about 10 years, but we just decided to move in together last year. Um, and he's also autistic. He also has ADHD. And before we moved in together, he was like, I don't really think you've got ADHD, or certainly not as badly as I do. Like, you just seem to get everything done. It doesn't seem to affect you. And then we moved in together. And of course, all of my structure, all of my routines, all of the scaffolding that I had built around my life went out the window. We were in a new place. We were in this new kind of living situation, living together. I was having to kind of work around him. We both work from home. And I just fell to pieces. Like I was just like ADHD was like, right, I'm in charge now.
Mhm.
And he was like, oh, I had no idea that that was what was going on. Like, yeah, it's I'm very fortunate in that my particular neurotype has this lovely kind of it does this lovely kind of balancing act. And sometimes one thing is more prevalent than the other. Um, like a old-fashioned weather clock. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting old and
Uh,
realize.
but most of the time they manage to stay in balance and it manages to keep me like my autism is so good at structure and routines and systems. Like I have such a logical systems part of my brain that it provides this really lovely scaffolding so my ADHD brain can go off on these creative flights of fancy and really kind of bounce around like a ping pong ball, but it's doing it in this lovely kind of autism container, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I've heard this before. The combination of the two puts you right in the center, so people don't think you have either because you've somehow have put two together to make you look neurotypical. Um,
It's all an illusion.
yeah, it's only until you take yourself, like you said, out of those environments. I will probably next year look at the autistic stuff because I compare mine to my partner's. There's no trace of autism with her. Just the way her behavior is was I'm like you. I'm can be very organized and structured, and with my design process, you can see it playing out there. But then my ADHD doesn't want me to do all the pre-sketching. I just want to get on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for the final design. Let me just get playing
Yeah.
around. But I'm very meticulous about exactly how straight it is its center, the rule of thirds that they use in graphic design. I'm following all that. So that's for another day. But it's interesting because a lot of people I know, you don't have that. You don't have ADHD. It's been a bit of a
Yeah.
rough 4 weeks. People are like, oh no, you can't. Look at everything you've done. You had a global business for a while, and you a trained massage therapist, you're a personal trainer, you're a trained coach. I said, yeah, great. Am I using any of those things? They're like, oh no, what am I doing? Oh, I'm working in a supermarket at night. So what's happened there? So I've got all this potential, I've got all this training. I'm not using any of it. How is that neurotypical? It's not for me to
Oh,
end up.
that sounds so familiar. That's so relatable to so
Yeah.
many of
And a bit
us.
of it's self-worth, self-esteem. I've only just recently, in this week, last week or so, that's a big thing, apparently, self-worth, because you don't understand what's wrong with you. So your self-worth just goes down the toilet before diagnosis. So
Yeah.
now I get to rebuild that. But as I'm sure you're aware, we look back and grieve what we hadn't done, but we can think what I have done. I'm like, how can I use all that now? Okay, so I'm a
Mm.
qualified coach. I wasn't ready then, but through who knows? I could be an ADHD coach in the future. But I needed that original qualification to do it. If I want to massage again, I can. I was insanely successful at it. I just got bored out of my mind towards the end. I was like, I'm sick of just rubbing muscles. I need to move on. And now I know that I need to be in the creative space. I need to be creating something, moving on to the next project. Awesome. Can do
Yeah.
that. But without the years of growing businesses, knowing how to market businesses, knowing how to talk to people, clients, get massage therapists to feel safe and comfortable in my therapy space, I can use that in the podcast. I can make Ellie feel safe as I was a massage therapist. It's not wasted, anyone. So don't think any of it's
No.
wasted. And yes, we have potential, and we can do what we want with our life, potential or
Mm.
not. Speaking of potential and amazing creative skills, let's talk more about the amazing work you're doing. So this is what first drew me in. I said, oh, this is really cool. But what I really want to know, because my partner was asking about it. So are you doing bespoke stuff that people are asking for? Tell me more about how your pieces come to be, who they're for, and how those people get to it, if that makes sense.
Good question. Um, so the work I make is very much self-generated, and that was a very conscious decision. Having done like illustration and commercial art before, and really struggling with that process, it was when I started doing this full time. It was very important to me that I just make the work that I want to make. And my job as a business owner, as a marketer, is to find the people who resonate with that. So my favorite comment about my work is always like, me too, like this resonates with me. I'm a very uh cerebral intellectual. Like I love working in concepts. So my work is all about describing certain experiences, and sometimes they're very obvious. So I have a piece called "I Feel Your Eyes on Me Like Beetles," which is all about that neurodivergent experience of being perceived and the discomfort of feeling people looking at you, feeling people kind of experiencing you. Um, and it's a very sort of literal piece. Um, and then I have a collection called The Flourishing, which is about my experience of coming out of an abusive relationship, moving to Denmark, finding myself again. And it's actually the pieces that you see behind me here. Not that you can see that if we're on audio, but they're very much, they're floral pieces, and they're all about that kind of bursting forth, bursting out of a container and being kind of wild and bright and vibrant for the first time. One of the things that one of my collectors said about this collection in particular is that she said, at first glance, they look like, you look at them, and you're like, oh, nice flowers, like, and then you look deeper and you realize that they're a bit punk and they're in drag and they're totally like subversive. And that kind of the layers of hidden meaning and all of that kind of stuff, that really gets me excited. So I'm always looking for ways to sort of translate my experience as as somebody who has a different neurotype, somebody who experiences things in a very different way, somebody who has sensory processing. I have another collection which is all about alexithymia, which is the inability to sort of process and express emotions, like to identify what they are. So that was the first part of the question, how the work comes to be. I don't do commissions. Like, it doesn't feel resonant to me to do commissions to somebody. I want someone who, the reason I'm doing this is for somebody to see themselves in my experience, so we can have that moment of connection. We can have that kind of me too moment. And that's the thing that really excites me about the sharing of the work and the I suppose the promoting of the work in a way. What was the second part?
Yeah, so just to jump in, so is it like a bit like a resonance thing? So people resonate through something that you've birthed and they resonate with that, and then that's how it kind of unfolds, which I really love. That's really natural and organic. So is it a bit like that? It's kind of like matchmaking. Let's match you up with your resonant piece.
Yeah, exactly. Like I tell the stories, like my work is very story driven. So I tell the stories of like why I made the pieces and what they mean and what they symbolize and what they stand for. I have a lot of kind of personal symbols and personal mythology and things that I weave in. And so on one level, like anyone can experience the work on a superficial level and say, oh yeah, nice flowers, like I like your cats, whatever. And then for the people who are interested in that, there's like another level, and they can come down and they can take part of the story, and then you can just go kind of deeper and deeper, and people find the pieces that really speak to them. And sometimes it's a color combination that really resonates with them. Sometimes it's something of personal significance, for example, a particular flower, or they love the story behind something. Like I never know. Sometimes they see stuff in the work that I have no idea is there, and they're like, oh, I love this piece because XYZ, and I'm like, oh, okay, I had no idea that was there. But that's part of the excitement of art, is that you make a thing, you have an idea of what it is that you're making, but it changes depending on who's observing it. And I think that really kind of, I get really excited about that.
It's interesting you say that, because my little creative brain's ticking along here, and I just love creatives talking about their work. But it's kind of like there's the three strands, isn't it? There's the visual. When you look at it, there's how it makes you feel, just from a visual, and then that's it. And then you've got the story, so the artist's story of where it came to be, which is what I'm learning a lot about in the degree. How did you get there? So that's what the skill I'm trying to harness, and people may connect to how it came to be. And then there's those, like you said, that see the things that they see, which is unique to them. So you've got three ways that a piece of art, of any kind of sculpture or anything, can speak to us. I guess, is that really a beautiful experience? It must be very beautiful to see people's interaction with your work. It must be amazing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love when people send me like pictures of the work in their home. I love it when people talk to me. They'll send me, emails about a certain piece or a certain story, and it's incredible. It's incredible. And I think it's interesting because there are so many different ways to sort of be an artist. And I had a conversation with an artist friend recently, and we were talking about the phenomenon of corporations going to a gallery show of a particular artist and buying up the whole lot. If it's like a hot ticket artist, they'll buy the whole exhibition and they'll store it in a basement as a tax write-off. And she was saying, like, I have no problem with that. Like, give me the money, I can always make more work. And I was like, well, that just feels really wrong to me, because I want that connection. Like, that's the thing that really excites me, is the Me Too moments. I want my work to be with people who love it, who get something from it, who look at it every day and it makes them feel a certain way, or it reminds them of something that's important to them, or it helps them to calm their brain down, or it helps them feel brave or powerful, or, any one of these myriad reasons why people buy art. That's the thing that really speaks to me.
It's kind of inspiring inspiring another human being before you pass from this earth is a pretty good thing to have done before you go. And I think
Yeah,
it's like when you're a kid, isn't it? You draw something really special at school, and your mum or dad or guardian sticks it up on the wall there, and they just love it, and they just think of you when they see it. I mean, it's just like the same thing when we're kids.
it really
Thing.
is. It really is.
For example, in my degree, I had to do some ink. I forgot what it's called. When you roll ink and then you create prints.
Hmm.
So ink
Yeah,
printing.
they're monoprinting.
Monoprinting, thank you. I really struggle with the physical. It's interesting, the physical stuff, like sculpture making. My brain, I can't do it. I just want to create digital, getting pieces and typography and manipulating it and then creating these pieces. I'm finding it really hard doing offline stuff, which is weird, but it's part of my experience. But I did one of my cats, so I drew on my cat, not round the cat, obviously, picture of the cat and on a monoprint, and you take it off and it looked amazing. It looked like some sort of Japanese professionally done ink blotching thing.
Hmm.
And my partner's like, "Oh my God, it's like a professional piece." And she put it in a frame and it's on the living room wall. And I look at it and I feel warm
Oh,
inside. Oh, I did that. And it's representing my cat who I love more than anything outside of my family unit. So it's true, isn't it? It's like, oh my God, to know that you've made impression on someone's emotion, soul, mind is special, isn't it?
it really is. It really is. Yeah.
So what I would like to know is how does your AuDHD play a part in how you're creating in that moment? Does that drive you? Is there loads of dopamine involved that keeps you ticking along? How does your neurodivergent help you thrive in that business and want to keep pushing it?
Oh, this is such a good question because it works on so many levels. Like when it comes to the actual art making itself, the physicality of it for me is like stimming. It's like a sensory experience that I find deeply, deeply enjoyable. So the sounds of like the palette knife on a canvas and the way the paint smells and the squishiness of it and um the way that the colors interact with each other, like I find color incredibly exciting. um and it pleases me on a sensory level like nothing else. It's to the point of being kind of more effective for calming me down than meditation or even kind of going out and being in nature or anything. Like it's my happy place. um but having said that, I have a very interesting relationship with it, doing it as a business. So my creative process is very much dependent on ebbs and flows. So I'll have long periods of time where it's all happening in my head, but there's not much happening kind of in the physicality. Um, and then all of a sudden it will all erupt out of me, and I'll have 2, 3 weeks, a month or two, where I'm just making and making and making, and I'm deep in hyper focus, and it's almost impossible for me to do anything else. Um, so my challenge is leaning into that while still being able to run a business because, there aren't many businesses in the first year or two that can stand for the founder to be, completely hands off for 2 or 3 months. So my challenge at the moment is balancing the things that need to happen in the business, all of the marketing, the sharing of the process, which is really difficult because there's so much of the process happens in my head. If I do too many sketches or too much prep work,
Mm.
all of the air goes out of the idea and it's done. My brain's like, okay, we're done with that. So I have to find this really delicate balance, which works brilliantly for me. But of course, when you're promoting stuff on social media and trying to bring people behind the scenes and stuff like that, it's very difficult. You can't plug people into your brain and say, like, this is what's percolating for me right now. Um, so yeah, I love the art making process. I love the business running process. Like that really appeals to the systems part of my brain. And marrying the two together is something that I am in the process of figuring out how it all kind of coalesces.
Yeah, I see. Are you saying that? I was like, I need to ask, what is the secret sauce to how, I guess the ADHD having the combination helps, but how often we have hundreds of projects in our wake, behind us. It's a trail of projects that have not been finished. What do you think is the secret sauce then? Obviously, you love and you're passionate about this and you're sustaining it for the long term and you're getting lots out of it on a daily basis and stretched out over time. So what do you think is the secret sauce to not make this another project that you're putting behind you? What is it? Is it the passion? What is it?
I think it's riding the wave. It's choosing projects or adjusting the way that you view finished, or how long it takes for a project to be finished, and not being over ambitious. So I know I make collections that are around 15 to 20 pieces. I know that I can achieve that in the amount of time that the energy and the passion and the enthusiasm lasts. So that works really, really well for me. I am not, however much I try, a little bit every day person with anything. I'm a sprinter. I'm a born sprinter. Like, everything I do is super, super intense, highly focused, lots of energy for a short period of time, and then I need a break. And rather than try and fight against that, which I did for much of my life, sort of pre-diagnosis, I've learned that I actually achieve more if I just let myself go with the way that my brain actually wants to do things. Which means sometimes I'm working on a project and it's super, super intense, and it's, I'm working like 15, 18 hours a day, and it's all I can think about. It's all I can talk about. Other things take a back seat, but I know that it's finite. It will come to an end, and then I can rest after that. And I make sure that I schedule in rest and don't immediately schedule another project after that until all of the energy runs out of my life and I can't do anything for a year. So yeah, knowing what your limitations are, knowing what your rhythms are, and understanding how you work best, and then just leaning into that, I really think is the secret.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just laughing because you're so much like me. I'm like, shall I do my degree? Maybe I'll just if I do 20 minutes a day, then I won't have that rush at the end. I can't do it. I sit down, I've got to do some research on these designers. I can't. I need hours. I need to have a block, and then I'll have lots of like lie downs in between, or maybe go for a walk. But my day's gone, and sometimes I may forget to shower, forget to eat, but I'm in. So it should sound so familiar, but it just means that last week before each assignment's due, it's intense. But my best,
which is fine as long as you haven't also arranged a bunch of appointments or interviews that you're doing, or I don't know, a holiday.
Yeah. No, I don't. I make sure that weekend's free because it's my best work. My partner's like, my God, that's so good. And you're getting so good at this. And it's because, like you, I got an idea of what I want it to look like. So I start at the end and then I deconstruct it. Okay, that typography doesn't work. Pull it out. And each bit I'll download that document. So when I submit it, I'll say, this is how I got there. I started here, then deconstructed. That's how I did it. No sketching. I reverse sketch, if that makes sense. And that keeps me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really important. Yeah, carry on.
I think there's a lot of shaming around like productivity and workflows, and there's very much seems to be this idea that there is a right way to do things, and it's very linear, it's very sort of mechanical, it's very much based on the premise of the Industrial Revolution, which is, so outdated now. Like, we don't all go to work in factories, but we still have this kind of 9 to 5 work ethic where you're supposed to show up and produce the same amount of output every single day. And then you have 2 days to recharge and rest and get everything else in your life done. And then you go back to this very linear level of output. And the fact of the matter is, it's not effective. It doesn't work for most people, neurotypical people included. There was a study done that showed that out of an 8-hour workday, most people are only productive for about 4 hours. Like, people cannot concentrate, even with, breaks, for that extended period of time every single day. It's just not how we work as humans. And yet, those of us with neurodivergent brains are even more outside of that kind of framework. And yeah, I find a lot of us, and myself included, I do this to myself, we are constantly shamed for having a different way of working. And if, doing things backwards, if doing things, when you have a deadline to motivate you, if doing things like all at once in a short burst and then nothing for a while is how you work best and how your work feels most effortless, you produce your best things, excites you to do, then that is absolutely what you should lean into. And you shouldn't try to work in a way that doesn't fit you, because you're not going to produce your best anyway. And you'll make yourself miserable in the process.
The way we live our life isn't really set up for any version of a brain, really, even more so with neurodivergence. So I'm really glad that you said that. You're doing, as we sort of wrap up the show, you're doing these amazing speeches, which I was going to ask you to do. Tell the audience how they can thrive. And you've been nailing it, but we have to ask the question still. So before you go, do you have a message for those listening who are trying to live a full life in the face of ADHD? And this is also for those who are thinking about diagnosis. So letting them know that there's hope at the end of that if they really wanted to. So what would be your message for those to live a full, thriving life?
I mean, I think it really is a culmination of everything I've said over the course of the time we've been talking. It really is, whether you get an official diagnosis, whether you're self-diagnosed, whether you're just sort of, I don't know, neurodivergent curious. It really is about being kind to yourself and understanding that you can design your life, whatever that might look like for you, to mean that you are happy and healthy and well-regulated and you can thrive. Like, you have control over those things. It might not happen overnight. In fact, it probably won't happen overnight. But over time, you can adjust things. You can explain things to people. You can make arrangements and compromises. And you have the power. It's your life. You have the power and the permission to thrive. Like, you're allowed to be happy and healthy and well-regulated, even if your life doesn't look like anybody else's as a result.
Certainly. I love that. And like you said near the very beginning about compassion too, isn't it? You go on that process full of compassion, be gentle with yourself. When you announce it, be gentle with yourself in private. And if I can tell anybody anything, this raw 4 weeks in, it feels like it gets worse after just ride that, because I'm riding it right now. It's been quite rough. It's like, why is it not worse now? It's weird. But I'm letting it happen more. I'm letting my body do what it needs to do so I can understand it better. It's
surrender. It's a letting go process, I think. And then all of this stuff comes out. And it does, it does die down again. Like, you find your normal again, and it's a new normal. But it gets worse and then it gets better.
Yeah, it's kind of finding your flow, isn't it? You're not going to get it straight away. I mean, this is 41 years of my life that I'm having to look at and witness with love and compassion and let it flow. It's a long time, guys, a long time.
It really is.
So I've had like the most amazing time ever talking to you. I loved it. I've been doing this for years, interviewing people. I've always loved it. But to find somebody who's got a brain like mine and is also artistic, heaven. So I just want to thank you for that. But yeah, thank you so much. And people want to, because I know you've got your podcast and obviously you've got your amazing business. So here's your time to plug and pitch and get people coming your way. Tell us all.
Well, the best thing to do is to come over to my website and sign up for my emails. If you go to elinortrierstudio.com/keep in touch, then you can see where to sign up and all the lovely things that people have said about them. I send out a missive once a week, which is a collection of the weird and wonderful, basically. So it might be artists that I'm particularly enjoying, or articles or documentaries or movies or books or anything that sort of speaks to an aspect of being on the fringes of society, really. I never know what's going to come out, but it's always interesting. And while you're there, have a look around the site. Come and have a look at some of my art, look at some of my collections. I'm open for studio visits, both in person and virtually. So if you want to hang out and talk about art, then yeah, just hit me up.
Do it, guys. Do it. Especially even if you're not creative, just go and check it out. You can find it really inspiring. I think we all have a deep inner creative person just wanting to come out. Just need to let them out. And what do we need to know about your podcast? Should we want to listen in?
My podcast is where I speak to other artists, a lot of them neurodivergent, about their creative process. So I'm obsessed with the idea of the sort of the rituals and the routines and the structures that people build around their creativity. I find it endlessly fascinating. So I invite the artists. Sometimes visual artists, sometimes writers. I think I've got a couple of drag artists coming up, performers, various people on the sort of the way that they make the things that they make.
Amazing stuff. Yeah, go and check it out, guys. It's just a really wholesome podcast. I have a combination of crazy
Aw.
podcasts, wholesome ones, really interesting ones. So, but no horror podcasts for me. That's not my vibe. But the rest of them I'm on board with. But yeah, I'll put all the links in the show notes as always, guys. And if I haven't, message me saying you didn't put the show notes in. Sorry, then I'll put them in. But I just want to thank you so much, Ellie, for coming on to this. Is obviously episode 2. So obviously I've been doing this for a while, but it's been a bit of a gap. So it's been the people so far that I've met have been so lovely and making me feel like I can still do this. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a lovely experience.
Yeah, thank you. I want all the guests back on at some point, so we'll make that happen in the future. But thank
Wonderful.
you, Ellie. Thank you, everybody, for listening at home. If you know anybody that's going through this journey that you think would love to share the story, it doesn't matter. I have a show where we talk to coaches and experts and therapists. There's a show where it can be anyone from any walk of life that thinks they can inspire other people to start their journey to diagnosis. And also you can listen to me and my partner talking all things relationship and our individual stories. So it's like a couples podcast. So go and check that out. So thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time.